So let's kick it off, Mariann. It's a pleasure to have you here. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, so hi everyone. My name is Mariann Lowery. So I'm originally from Hungary. There I go by Mariann. In the US, where I live now, in Colorado, it's really cold here actually, but it's beautiful. It's this gloomy day, gray and gloomy, and it reminds me of my hometown at this time of the year. So yeah, I'm in Colorado, and here in the US, everybody calls me Mariann. So whatever you feel comfortable with. Yeah, as Akush mentioned, I have over 15 years experience in research and research strategy, and that sometimes makes me feel old or maybe experienced. I started my research career in market research and consumer insights. I tried myself out in research project management with a small online research company. And then I spent several years in healthcare research with the Healthcare Association. And then I also entered the UX and product research field. So I have experience both on the client and the agency side. Both sides. I've been in startups, a large global agency. So I started out in Synovate, which was acquired by Ipsos. So I got to work within that environment as well. And nonprofit, SaaS, like software as a service companies, small teams, big teams, anything in between. Most recently, I was the UX and product research lead at Stack Overflow. If you're in technology or software, you're probably familiar with Stack. If you're not familiar with Stack Overflow, it is the largest online community and question and answer platform for developers and other technologists. So if you write code and you have a question about your code, most likely you'll end up on Stack Overflow to get your questions answered. Stack Overflow also has a paid software, Stack Overflow for Teams, which provides like knowledge sharing documentation platform for businesses and companies. And that is the team I was on for the last 2.5 years. I got to work with an amazing team, amazing product managers, designers, researchers, and product leads. The UX maturity was quite high at Stack Overflow, so research was always taken seriously and was an integral part of the product development process. So I loved it. It was a dream job in so many ways. Unfortunately, the journey came to an end about 6 weeks ago. We had a huge reduction in workforce, and unfortunately, along with many other researchers, designers, and other talented individuals, I was let go. Since then, I've been doing some contract work and upskilling in some areas, and I'm actively looking for the next gig. So yeah, I'm talking a lot, but during my research career, I feel like I've seen a lot. And while the environments, the stakeholders, and goals were different at the places I worked at, there was one thing that was always clear. The biggest red flag for research projects and an indicator that things may go wrong is the lack of alignment, whether it's a lack of alignment on goals, lack of alignment with the overall company strategy, or with stakeholders. And because of this, this is one of the reasons why I'm so passionate about strategic alignment, just to ensure that research projects will be set up for success. And so, yeah, that's why I'm so passionate about strategic alignment. And as part of that, research road mapping, this is one of my favorite research topics to talk about. So I'm super excited to be here. And thank you so much for the invitation.
Yeah, it's my pleasure. And you provided the perfect way to the first topic. And let's explore what research roadmaps are in the first place. And I think then we can get into the benefits and how to build one. So what's a research roadmap?
What's a research roadmap? So I'm going to give you my definition, and this is not the only definition. This is not like an encyclopedia definition, but this is based on my experience. So a research roadmap is a plan that helps you define your research goals and strategy. It also provides a timeline for your projects to be conducted so that you can reach your research goals. It can be used as a tactic for greater team-wide alignment, or maybe even organization-wide alignment, and I can talk about this more a little bit later on. It is also a great tool to have a framework to help organize and prioritize your work. For me, during the last couple of companies where we had research roadmaps, it really helped with capacity planning and resource allocation. And this is also a really helpful tool or visual to document and highlight your work. I'm sure many of you can relate that nowadays it's very important to show the impact of research and the ROI on research and documenting your work, making it visible. And the roadmap can be really helpful for that, to increase visibility for your research. There are different ways of doing roadmaps or approaching roadmaps. It is also an opportunity to highlight how your research and your projects fit within the strategic goals, the different visuals you can use to indicate that. So it's a great communication tool. And what I love about it is I use it quite a bit as a way to help my team be more value and understanding focused versus feature focused. So the way you communicate the research you're doing, you can do it at like the project level, or you can give project descriptions, but you can also describe your research project as a problem. So like the problems you're solving, right? Solving. So it really helps focus on being more user-centered, being more problem-focused and value-focused versus just thinking about what features what feature building your research is supporting. So
What
that
kind
was
of
my, sorry.
yeah, when you say like a research roadmap, what kind of where does this live? Does it live where a product roadmap lives, or is there, if
That's a
you do you
great
have like a
question.
visual representation or that?
Yeah, definitely. We can either screen share now, or we can do it later, and I can go into detail with the map. But yeah, so for us, we had a separate product roadmap, and then the research roadmap was supporting it. Where it lives, it can be a document. I've been experimenting with some Figma files. There's some really cool templates, so I don't even have to do the work. You just, nowadays with Figma, you can just give it a prompt like, hey, I want to create a research roadmap. And you can give it prompts like how you want it aligned. It's like a quarterly basis, or like now, next, later, how you want to chunk it out. And it can give you a pretty cool template. We've done it in Miro and Lucid, like all the whiteboarding tools. But at Stack, we ended up actually using a Google slide, because that's how our product roadmaps were typically created. So it was a Google slide, and it was very easy to update. I think it depends on the company and your goals and how you share documentation. I think the tool itself, like where you build it, isn't that important, but it's more like what you communicate with
the process around that. So let's talk about this process a little bit, and let's pick the example of Airtime. Airtime doesn't have a research roadmap yet, and let's say after this webinar, I go out and I say, Mariann, I love what you just said. I want to build my first research roadmap. How do I get started?
Yeah, good question. And again, the process will probably be different for like a larger organization, a larger research team versus a smaller group, or like a company that's starting out. Like 2 companies ago, when I worked at the Healthcare Association, we had a fairly simple visual, and we didn't call it a roadmap because that word just didn't resonate really well with the stakeholders at that point. But I think we did it in Excel maybe, and it looked more like a Gantt chart, like visualizing what initiative, what research you're working on at any given time. And we color coded all of the project and research initiatives, and the colors indicated which team you're supporting. So maybe it was like, everything in yellow was supporting the marketing team's goals. And then there were other projects that were supporting the content development team's goals or product development. So again, it just was a great visual to show how research is aligned with your various stakeholders. So I would say that's a first step, that identify your stakeholders and make sure that you're aligned on the goals with that. And so let's go back to Stack Overflow. We did not always have a research roadmap at Stack Overflow. When I started out about 3 years ago, there was no research roadmap. There was a product roadmap, but we didn't have a research roadmap. And the research projects were pretty much given to us like top down, like, hey, okay, you're going to work on this research project. And then the researchers did the research project, planned the research, executed the research, then you reported back on the findings, and then you worked with the stakeholders on next steps. We had 3 researchers on that within the product team, and everybody was working on different initiatives. But as we started evolving, and after even just like a first couple of research projects, we started seeing these larger overarching themes and patterns emerging about user needs and motivations. And regardless of the research topic, whether it was like an evaluative study, or you were doing a survey, or you were talking to users in interviews, there were these overarching themes. We constantly heard the same thing about the problems, like what could we do better, how the product fits into their workflow, and what are some of the improvement areas. So we quickly saw it as an opportunity to start approaching research a little more holistically, like not on a project basis and not on a feature basis, but let's look at our users' needs and motivations more holistically, and help our team figure out and tell the story, and help the team figure out how we can solve these user problems. So this is where you bring in your stakeholders. In my case, the stakeholders were the product managers, product designers, we had some engineers and product leadership, and in some cases, even like the C-suite executives, because there were some large like company-wide initiatives that we were supporting. So make sure you have your stakeholders in the room or in the virtual room or in the conversation. And I feel like in order to create a successful research roadmap, you need to get your inputs right. So what are these inputs? The inputs can be company mission, they can be your strategic goals, they can be your stakeholder goals. If you're working in a product team, it's your product priorities or your product vision. And maybe even you map your research initiatives back to key performance indicators or objectives and key results and business objectives. So hearing from all of your stakeholders, what are the needs and what are the priorities, you will ensure that the research that you do will fit into the larger picture. And you're not doing research just for the sake of doing research, but you're doing research because it will help with the product development process or with the business objectives.
I love the fact that you, like, as a first step, you already make the link between the research to be done and the business value, like, or you called it the problem, but ultimately, how does whatever you do and researchers do tie into solving that problem for the user? So when you talk to stakeholders, did you organize some workshops with them, or did you like sit down with them one-on-one? What was a good format?
I love workshops. I love workshops. I feel like there's such an effective way to bring people and ideas together, and you can get it done like an hour. That's a whole other topic I could talk about forever. So I love the prioritization workshops, but you don't have to do that. There are different frameworks. But yeah, definitely you need to communicate. I've been virtual, like working from home for years now, and just schedule a Zoom meeting or Google Meet and get everyone on board and look at the goals, like look at the company objectives, look at your product managers' immediate goals for the next quarter or beyond. Again, this is one of those things where at Stack, we were planning quarterly. So the product development, like prioritization and updating the roadmap, that was on a quarterly basis. But in an earlier stage company, you may have to do it monthly or even more frequently, or you may build the research into like an agile sprint planning process. So it really comes down to the speed, the stage of the company. So yeah, sorry, long answer to your question, but yeah,
okay.
Figure out a way to get your stakeholders talking and talk about their needs. And
okay, so you get the input from the stakeholders, and then you define the problems that need to be solved. And I guess then as a next step, you come up with the right research approaches and methods to deliver insights for that. I don't want to put words in your mouth, so just tell me if I'm off track here.
Yeah, it's pretty much like that. So once you identify, once you set your priorities, and then what is the problem we're trying to solve? What is the focus for the next quarter or next 6 months? Then the question is like, so what outstanding questions do we have? How can research help? Like what is the gap we need to close here with research? What are some of the insights that will help with the product development process? So you map those out. And I would recommend that. I think sometimes researchers, and I know I did this early in my career, I was focused so much on projects. Like I need to do this project so that I can, share the insights and then move on. But really, like, pull yourself out of the project, pull yourself out of the weeds, and look at it more holistically. Like, what is the human problem we're trying to solve here, right? We're not just building flashy features. We're trying to solve problems for real human beings, and regardless of your product, you just need to remind your team of that. I think that sometimes product managers or engineers, they can get stuck in the weeds and I need to build this feature, I need to get it out in the next quarter. And our opportunity as a researcher to help pull them out of that and help them see the bigger picture. So I think with all of this communication, like what are we trying to solve? What are we building? Why are we building this? What is the problem we're going to solve? How are we going to improve our user lives and workflows? Those are the conversations you have during these planning sessions. And then once you have your research questions figured out, or like the questions that need answering, then you prioritize. And again, there are different ways of prioritizing, different frameworks. You can do workshops. There are like impact versus effort. So you figure out what way you want to prioritize. And then you start chunking out your research initiatives on the roadmap. And it's very helpful because we did it on a quarterly basis because mean, we were mature enough, the product was mature enough that we could plan ahead that far, but you may not be able to do that. So if you can't do that, you can't plan out the next quarter, next 6 months, then maybe you just focus on the now. There's this now, next, later approach. So now you put in the now column, and I'll show you a visual how you can do that. You can put in the now column like the highest priority items. Like, what are some of the biggest questions we're trying to answer now? How can research help with that? And then what are some of the things that can wait? Maybe a little bit later. You put that in the later in the next column, and then maybe some of the lower priority items go in the later. And so my experience is that the nearer future usually has more detail. And so you can be a little more granular in your roadmap with the next month, with the next quarter, and probably like the next chunk of time. So like the second quarter you're trying to plan out, that may be more high level. You may not have like projects in mind or like the research methodology figured out yet, but just like those big questions, put it in the roadmap. And so, yeah, I would say that after the stakeholder alignment, after the prioritization, just have to make sure that your research, whatever you're doing, it somehow aligns with either your product team goals or supports the business. And if you see that it doesn't, then that's probably a red flag that something is wrong and maybe you didn't hear from everyone. So I would do that. And yeah, and then we can jump to the visuals whenever.
I think let's put the visuals. If you brought some nice visuals, it's always, I find, very valuable to see things and not just talk about these concepts in an abstract manner, but let's look at what a research roadmap can look like.
Okay, so I put together two. These are made up. These are not actual roadmaps. These are just like frameworks to show you how you can approach it, and hopefully you can see it. I haven't done any kind of accessibility check on this, so the colors may not be ideal, but I've been just playing around with this in the last few days. So this is very similar to what we did at Stack Overflow. You can see like here's like the first quarter of the year, and then the next quarter of the year, and then we'll put down the generative research we're going to do. So when you're trying to dig into more like motivations or deeper understanding of users, then you may have several evaluative research projects. You're either testing a concept or a design. If you have multiple iterations, I would put that on the roadmap. It's good if you support multiple teams or multiple pods. It's good to indicate what pod you're supporting. So it's helpful for the product manager, but also like higher level executives to see what pod your research is supporting. In some cases, it may be supporting all pods. We had little icons for each of the pods, so we put the little icons on the roadmap at Stack Overflow, and then. If you have any kind of continuous research going on, I would put that on the roadmap as well. And then also research operations. Don't forget about that. We did not have or dedicated research operations person at Stack. So as researchers, we were also responsible for research ops. And often that can take a lot of time and effort. So I would say put it on the roadmap. If it's in any way research related, put it on the roadmap. So let's say you're trying to build up a new research panel, put that on the roadmap. If you're testing out something like we did this quite a bit, we're testing out some like pop-up surveys in Intercom, put that on the roadmap because it is time and effort and you want to make sure that your work is documented. And then also it can help you with capacity planning. It's like a look at all the things we're doing in January. So if you get another research request, you may have to reprioritize or push back. And then, so everything is chunked out here. And then let me show you another one. And I just want to make sure it shows well on the screen. Doesn't look like it does. And sorry, some of the fonts are super small on this one, but let's see. Okay, I think this is okay. So this is more like the now, next, later approach. So here we're looking at the now, and this is here now. And as you're getting your stakeholders aligned, this is the area where you can just list out the key themes. Like what are the key themes for the next month, next quarter, or what are the highest priority items? What are some of the research areas we need to cover? What are the biggest problems to solve? And then you can list them out here, even before you start thinking about the projects. And then as you start thinking through the methodology and then trying to fit these into different projects, then you can, this here says project one. You can detail out your project. You can provide a short project description. And then again, just to help your team being more user-focused, you could write down the problem you're trying to solve with the research, and then you can indicate the strategic alignment, which part or which team you're supporting. And I'll come back to the t-shirt size in a little bit. It's about just sizing up your project, like how large it is. And we used to tie back the research projects to our KPIs, the key performance indicators. So after you do this research, these are the key performance indicators where we expect to see a positive change. And then you can do the same thing for your next project. I think I left room here for research operations again. So you can just write down the highest priority research operations initiatives. And then moving over to the next column. So you can see that this is a lot higher level. You're just like writing down maybe your biggest research questions or the topic. And these are all made up. Let's see, I can zoom in here a little bit. These are all made up topics. So you can just write down the topic and what is the objective, again, how the research fits in with the company objectives or business objectives. And it's just a good placeholder. This will likely change over the course of the weeks and months, but it's just good to put all of your research initiatives, planned research initiatives on the map. And then this is the later column. And it says later here, it's very small. And this is like super high level at this point. What do we need to solve for? What questions that need answers? So you may not even thinking about maybe research objectives. It's just like larger. So again, depending on like the research maturity or the like the product maturity or company stage, you can use different visuals. In Figma, it's really cool. If you start out like a new file, you can give it a prompt. And I think the prompt I did with the now next later is that give me a research roadmap template in the now next later framework. And this is pretty much what it spat out. I added some details. So I think in the past, they used to be more work, but now there are some really cool tools you can use and pick the visual that works for you. So hopefully this is helpful for the audience.
By all means. Thanks so much for sharing. I'm looking at the clock. We have 5 minutes left, and there's a couple of questions and topics that I wanted to cover. One of which is that and I guess also that's a characteristic of more for earlier stage companies and less for later stage. But there's always a person or an executive coming around the corner saying that they just need something done right now, and it's more urgent than anything that you have on your desk. And in some cases, these are legitimate requests. And I was wondering, what's the best way to stay flexible when you have a research roadmap and cater for ad hoc requests, or do you cater to them and or just say we do it later?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I feel like we constantly deal with this, and especially probably many of you can relate. I feel like 2023 was all about this changes. So yeah, company priorities can shift. Something happens in the market, and you have to react. And during these times, you may have to revisit your roadmap and realign more frequently. I think one of the things where researchers often complain about is like those last minute research requests, or like, hey, this wasn't planned, but somebody comes up with a great idea and they want you to do research. I think the beauty with the roadmaps is that when you have your roadmap and goals clearly defined, it's a lot easier to negotiate and maybe even push back on those requests. Without a roadmap and goals clearly defined, it's really hard to say, okay, I'm not doing it. But if you have a plan, you can just look at the plan. And I would say my advice would be is just do the same process. So here's this request. Let's review the request. Where does it support the overall company strategy? Why is this a great idea? Why do we need to do this? And if it's really high priority and the stakeholders agree that this is high priority, then you need to go back and reprioritize. And again, you may need to do a reprioritization workshop. You may need to drop something from the roadmap. Just make sure everybody's aligned. And then, of course, there are those, the C-suite or like the high-level pushes. And I definitely have experience with that from this year. So at Stack, by the beginning of the previous fiscal year, we had our research roadmap really well planned out, and we were really proud of ourselves. We did a good job. Like the first quarter looked beautiful. Everything was planned out. And then the next quarter was more higher level. And then our company priorities changed with the economy and the budget and the goals. And then, add AI, artificial intelligence on top of that. A lot of tech companies entered the AI race. And then we got, we were asked to start working on some AI-powered features. So pretty much everything we planned on the roadmap, we had to shift. So we even moved away from the quarterly planning and the monthly planning because it just wasn't realistic. So we were building 5 brand new AI-powered features, and research had to work faster. We had to figure out new ways to recruit participants and faster. So there was this really, really high demand for faster research. So we went more to like the now, next, later approach, and we were very closely aligned at that point with our product managers. I started attending the bi-weekly sprint planning meetings and just seeing what research can do in any given sprint. So yeah, it can change, and I just keep saying your roadmap is a roadmap. It's, as the name says, it's a map. And depending on the destination, you may need to choose a different path. So it's nice to have, and you need to be flexible. And during these crazy times, you may just have to revisit it more frequently and realign. But the process is the same. Get your stakeholder input, alignment, and then identify your priorities, and then start chunking it out on the roadmap. So yeah,
it reminds me, like what you described. It reminds me of the product roadmap in our company. When I come up with some like user problems that I talk to a few customers, and I go to the product team and say, "Hey guys, this is a really awesome like a problem. Here are a few solutions out there. Let's go and get and do them." And then they say, "Amazing, Akash. We put it in the backlog." And then Thursday, when we have the product meeting, the weekly product meeting, then we'll prioritize. And having this backlog, I'm sorry if that's not the right word, but this roadmap, this backlog of tasks, it gives you the ability to show like anyone who comes around the corner, hey, this is already on our desks. So it gives transparency. And then they can also make a judgment for themselves if their request is really the most important for the company. So thanks for sharing that. I have a last question, and then I pass the virtual mic to the audience. And the last question is about the impact of a research roadmap. Once you started using it, what changed for you as a researcher and for you and your colleagues as a research team?
Yeah, that's such a good question, such an important question. I think overall, the biggest impact is better alignment with the team, with your stakeholders, and even with the C-suite. And because you're better aligned on the goals, there is a smoother process of planning and product development, because everybody sees that research is an integral part of the whole product, or if you're working with content, it's content development process. So yeah, smoother process, better alignment, no question about what research is doing. I remember before we had a roadmap, some of our engineers were wondering, we're just not exactly sure how research works. It seems like research is in a black hole. It's kind of like magic. You do something and then you produce the findings. And with the roadmap, you create visibility for your work. Obviously, you do the whole stakeholder alignment, so the engineers are involved with that. So it takes the mystery out of it. And I think with that, just with the more visibility, there's definitely more impact. The other benefit is, or impact is, better capacity planning. And I think with the crazy times, we went through a couple of rounds of layoffs at Stack, unfortunately, and we lost a team member. And 2 people can do as much as 3, 8 people can do as much as 15. So it can help prevent you from spreading yourself too thin. So just constantly like ruthless prioritization. That was our key terminology, I feel like, for the last years. Like, you're ruthlessly prioritizing, you have this roadmap, you constantly revisit it. So it really helped with capacity planning and resource allocation. I think an added benefit, and this is so interesting, is that it can highlight improvement areas. So for example, you look at your roadmap, let's say you did all the planning, you put all your projects on the roadmap and the initiatives. And if you look at your roadmap and all you see is evaluative studies, so you're just testing design constantly, this may be an indicator that you're over-indexing on evaluating research, and maybe you're not leaving enough time for like the generally more foundational research. And if all you're doing is surveys, and it's great, like there's nothing wrong here. Like sometimes you do surveys, sometimes you do interviews, but it can give you an idea about the type of projects you're conducting and whether they are balanced. And let's see, Oh yeah, one more thing. I think it's so it shows your impact across your organization, and it's almost like a tracker. You can tangibly show how much research you have done, what teams you have worked with, like what teams, what pods, what KPIs you supported or influenced, what are the crucial topics you have covered. And then don't forget that this can be super helpful when it comes to performance reviews. I'm pretty bad about like document, like I don't have a brag document. Maybe I should start doing that. But a lot of people do that where they have a brag document and every week they just write down what they accomplished. And then when it comes to like the yearly performance review, they pull up that doc. And I feel like the roadmap can really help with that. Yeah, it's still important to track your accomplishments and the impact. But when you go back to the roadmap, it's pretty clear what you worked on, what are the impacts, how it ties back to strategic objectives. So that can be a really helpful tool. And then one last thing, if I have one more minute, if you decide to create a customer-facing roadmap, we did that. We didn't always have that, but just like with our product roadmap, we had our internal product roadmap, and we created a customer-facing roadmap. Just showed customers, this is what we're planning. These are the improvements and features we're planning in the next 6 months or so. We started sharing a customer-facing version roadmap with prospective and existing customers, because recruitment with especially your enterprise tier clients with technologies, it can be really difficult. They're really busy people. But if they see that, hey, in the next month or so, Stack Overflow is doing research on X topic, and they can't wait to share their feedback or provide input into the new feature development, it can make your recruitment process maybe even faster. We've seen this. We shared our customer-facing research roadmap with our customer success and sales teams, and they brought it in front of customers and they got excited. So if you decide to do that, like you don't have to, but if you feel like that would be beneficial, then create that like a higher level customer-facing roadmap, and you can use that as well. So yeah, many benefits.
That is so smart. And then all of a sudden you have like prospects or existing clients knocking on your door to get the first peep on the new features. And it's not you nagging them with 3 emails to please hop on a call. I love that. Mariann, let's turn the table now. There are a few cool things that we can do in this tool. First of all, if you click on one of our camera feeds, then you can do these nice confettis. But what is more important is that I can highlight the questions that we get from our amazing audience. And I'm going to put Vijay's questions first out there. And it's about unclear strategy and business goals, or what happens if they change too often. What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I definitely have experience with that with previous companies. Sometimes it is not clear. Sometimes maybe there is leadership change, or maybe you're like an early stage company. But I think planning is still important. There's got to be some kind of priority, even if there is not like a written goal or overall company mission and vision. There's got to be something like a problem you're trying to solve. So maybe you approach it as not as a goal planning, but hey, what is it that we're trying to figure out? What is it that we're trying to solve in the next, I don't know, month or 2 weeks or quarter? And then you start planning that way. And I just keep going back, like regardless of how mature the company is and how well your strategies are defined, I would bring in all the stakeholders. I would get their needs. Maybe you don't have clearly written goals, but every stakeholder has a need. See how you can align those. And then, if you work with users or if you work with customers, tie it back to their problems. Like, what is the problem we're trying to solve? What is the human need we're addressing? And then maybe you could start approaching roadmap planning that way.
From that way. I have the next question from Alex. About like a more or less detailed version of the roadmap, depending on which stakeholder you share it with. How did you do that at Stack Overflow?
It's another great question. We had one because it's like the colorful version I showed. It was granular enough, but we didn't include like the research questions or the discussion guide and all of that into that. Each research initiative had its own more detailed like research plan document that we did not share with the execs. So we had one, but I could see where you may need to create different versions. And yeah, I think that's totally fine. Maybe at your manager level, they want to see more detail about the project, so you could expand on one of these visuals and then add like the key research questions to your roadmap, or maybe even the audience, the sample size, so that's more detailed. But then for your higher level execs, probably like an initiative and maybe like the goal you're trying to achieve is enough. I haven't had to do this, but I can see how that could be, like depending on your stakeholder needs, that is something. But I think once you have one, then it's easier to adjust or shrink it down or expand. I think the planning process is still the same. I don't feel like you have to do two different kind of planning processes, because like the main initiative should be the same. It's just the amount of detail that you provide.
On to the next question, which is about recruiting. What was your strategy to recruit testers? This could be like a separate session, but if you could like share some tips, some practical approaches that you had, that would be amazing.
Yeah. And I have a follow-up question. What is ICP?
I think it's the ideal customer profile.
Okay, got it.
It's your target customer.
Yeah, that's a whole different topic. So we had, okay, I'm going to focus on Stack Overflow because it was a lot different for the Healthcare Association. We had different product plans, like product tiers. And for certain research projects, we only talk to enterprise customers because certain features were only released to enterprise customers. For the free and basic tiers, so yeah, a couple of different things. We had people could opt into research, and for some of the tiers, we had a large database that we could go, and then you could just select the selection criteria for the type of people you want to talk to, and then like you automated the email campaign. For the enterprise customers, at the beginning, it was quite manual. We did not have a database for certain like data privacy reasons. We worked with our customer success and sales teams. So whenever there was a research project and we needed customers, research participants, we reached out to customer success, gave them the heads up. We told them what type of companies or customers we'd like to talk to, whether we wanted to talk to end users or administrators of the product, and then they reached out. They were able to match up the research request with the right kind of customer. So it was quite manual. And then during 2023, we built out our enterprise customer research panel. So basically, we gave a high-level overview of what we're going to do. It was related to our AI-powered features that generated a lot of excitement. We told people to come to we use this experimenting with this new tool. They could come and sign up for the panel. There was a screener question of like, I don't know, 10, 15 questions, just getting a better understanding of what type of people they are. And then when we were ready to recruit for either like a focus group or interview or doing like a quick survey, it was just easy, like through the tool, we could reach out to them and invite them. So they're different. At the Healthcare Association, it was member-based. We had a large pool of people we could reach out to, and it was mostly via email. So yeah, it depends on how you have your database set up. Sometimes it's manual, sometimes it's more automated. It depends on the size of the pool as well. Hopefully that answers your question.
Yeah, I think so. And I think panel is a very important point here. Because what I want to emphasize with that is that when we do research, it's a lot of times transactional. We get some feedback from a user and then we say thank you. But a panel for me also stands for building a relationship. So you can go back to the same user, the same customer, and ask them, well, not every week, but there's a relationship that you build with them, which saves you time on always recruiting new people. So that's like one point that I noted down for myself. Let's look at the next one, because we have like, oh my God, a lot of questions here, and I hope we'll squeeze in time for everything.
How can we work with stakeholders to help them discover research questions beyond evaluating usability of features? This is such a good question. So I think, and I go back. So let's go back like 15 years when I started out as a researcher. I often ask my stakeholders to give me the research questions. And then I learned that that's not their job. So I would approach it in a different way. I would say, so this is beyond evaluating usability features. Yeah. So I would ask my stakeholder, whether it's a product manager or a C-suite executive, like, okay, so let's think about the next, I don't know, year or 6 months or quarter or next 2 weeks? What are the problems you're trying to solve? What is it that's in the back of your mind? What is it that's keeping you awake at night? And let them talk, and they will tell you their problems. They will tell you their priorities. And then you can ask the question back, like, okay, so what sort of either market or user insights would be helpful for you? What can help? What are the questions you have that you don't have answered? And then they will tell you those questions. So you're not asking them to give you research questions. You're asking them to open up and talk about their problems, what's keeping them up at night, their priorities. And then you as the researcher, I truly believe now that this is our job to help draft the right questions. Sometimes people don't know, like they don't know what they want to ask, but they know what problems they have. And as researchers, that is our opportunity to help with that process. And I think oftentimes it's a lot of evaluative studies, like, okay, can we test this design? Can we do the next iteration? But help pull them out of the weeds and say, okay, what are we trying to do here? What is the problem we're going to solve with this feature? Is it really going to create a better user experience? And how? And if you have any, and if there are questions about it, then maybe you recommend that we need to do a larger foundational study to dig deeper into user understanding. Maybe that doesn't exist yet. And as a researcher, you can make recommendations for that. So I truly believe we have a lot of opportunities. We started calling ourselves at Stack user advocates, not just user researchers, but user advocates, because we are that connector between the user needs and then the company objective, and we can help connect the two.
Amazing. I have a question about measuring research success and impact.
Yeah, $1 million question. I wish I could give you the answer. So there are so many different ways. I feel like, so quantitatively measuring that, I think it's difficult, but you can definitely look at the KPIs. So if you have a key performance indicators, so for example, we had several, increasing the number of content consumers or content creators, and if you can tie it back to the KPIs and do a benchmark, maybe you need to work with your data analytics or product analytics team to see how a feature is performing before the research, and then you do the research, and then you make improvements based on the research. Then you can track quantitatively how that moved the needle. So that is one way. I think this is tricky. So I had a conversation with my boss about this. Do we need to measure the impact? And I think because the company had a high UX maturity, the answer was that you guys are doing enough. You're already making an impact. Just the fact that research is such a crucial part of the product development process, that was a key indicator of success and impact. Quantitatively measuring, I don't know. I don't have the right answer to this question. I'll be honest with you. I haven't figured it out. I know there are some, I think the Nielsen Norman Group has a class on this, measuring impact. And I don't know, just, I think what I can say is changes in the key metrics. There's one more thing that I just remembered. So maybe there is some, if you do user testing and then you're checking task completion, and based on the research insights, you do research, you make recommendations on how to improve the feature, maybe the task completion rate changes. So that's another more quantitative way. But yeah, I feel like this is really tricky. So if anyone in the audience has the answer, I'm all ears. This is difficult.
I have a quick follow-up question on this one, because when we think about success or impact, we think about, as you also mentioned, of the bottom line. What are some cost or revenue elements or other measurable elements in the company performance? And I was just wondering if you ever come across an approach where you would get feedback from the recipients of research insights, if product, maybe a survey or interview with product managers where they assess their perceived value from getting insights from research. It's not something that ties directly to the bottom line, but it's another form of measuring impact. Have you come across anything like that?
Yeah, for sure. So I think there are three things for a product manager that were clear: time and cost saving, and time is money. So time saving is cost saving. And the other thing was the blind spot detection. I remember I got this feedback from a couple of PMs like, hey, thank you so much for doing this research because it helped me focus on things I wasn't even thinking about. I was so focused on my features, and you highlighted something from the research that made me realize how important it is. So yeah, blind spot detection. And then not everybody believes in the value of UX research. Unfortunately, I think we're seeing that nowadays, unfortunately, with some layoffs. But I think one thing is that I'm a firm believer that you cannot develop a product if you don't respond to user needs, and you need those insights. You need to align with your users. You need to align on the problems to solve. And at the end of the day, you are saving time. If you're doing research, to some people, it may seem like a time waster. And it may be like, okay, like, why can't we just ship this feature? Why do you need 3 weeks to do the research? But overall, it's going to save you time and money, because if you get the insights and then you make recommendations on what you need to change in order to truly address the user need, on the long run, it's going to save time and money. I think that's a tricky part, and that's where all of us campaigning and advocating for our users and being that user advocate and trying our team be more user and problem focused versus feature focused. That is our opportunity, and that's where we can bring value.
Amazing. I have a last question that I wanna that we have from Honey, another topic, which goes back to the flexibility aspect that we discussed, like a fast-paced environment, everything is changing very frequently. How do you talked about this, right? How you first set quarterly, then monthly. Could you recap shortly what are the top measures you can take to manage?
Yeah, so yeah, I can see how this can be bad joke is put on the roadmap that you need to look at the roadmap. No, just kidding. So seriously, we with my other research teammates, we had a weekly check-in where we talked about research ops and everything, and that was a good time to check in on the roadmap if anything changed. I think the original planning process, so when you plan out the quarter or the month or whatever, that will definitely take longer. If you plan it out quarterly, I would say to set aside a couple of hours for the planning process, but then the revisit, just make it regular, make it a routine. Maybe once a week you check in on that. It's important to keep the communication going with your stakeholders. So either you have a one-on-one with your PM every week or every other week, just to see if you're still aligned. I think it all comes back to communication and alignment. And I think the updates, it really didn't take that long. Once we planned it out, then weekly, just a quick check-in. Okay, I may need to move this a little bit because we may not be able to start at the end of January, but then move it over to February. That didn't take a lot of time. But make sure you allow some time for it. If you feel like priorities constantly change, maybe allow an hour for it any week or every other week to revisit the map. So just keep the communication going with your stakeholders. That would be my recommendation.
Mariann, thanks a lot. We're at the end of our webinar and discussion today. We had amazing engagement from the audience. There's just a whole little novel discussion length discussion thread here. I'm really grateful for the questions. We had some fantastic questions. Learned a lot from your answers, Mariann, and from all the best practices at Stack Overflow. So I'm crossing my fingers. Your next gig is going to be something again super exciting and new.
Thank you.
I'd love to hear about what new stuff you come up with after the product roadmap.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'm keeping my fingers crossed for myself. It's a crazy market out there, but yeah, I'm excited about the future. And to all of you in the audience, thanks for the amazing questions. Thanks for attending today. And if you want to continue the conversation, just ping me on LinkedIn, and I'm happy to chat. And if you need help getting your roadmap started, I'm happy to brainstorm.
Fantastic. Mariann, thanks so much. Thanks so much for everyone, and wish you a nice evening, day, early morning, depending on the time zone. And hope to see you. This is the last show, the last webinar for Airtime this year. But in January, I already have an amazing lineup of guests who will join us. So I hope to see many of you around in January again. Take care, everyone, and wish you happy holidays in advance.
Happy holidays. Bye, everyone.
Ciao, ciao.